Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Raydell Peischler with Government Executive Media Group, and on behalf of Cornerstone, I want to welcome you to today's webcast, Starting from the Inside, Prioritizing Your People. In today's program, we'll discuss the key reasons talent management is critical to mission accomplishment and how agencies are focusing on their employees' needs and ensuring that talent management strategies remain intact despite budget cuts. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping items. At the bottom of the webcast platform, you'll find several icons. The Q&A tab allows you to ask a question. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. Additionally, if you experience any technical difficulties, please click on the Help icon for live support. This webcast is being recorded, and a link will be sent to you with the archived recording. We encourage you to pass this along to your friends and colleagues. So let's get started. I would like to introduce our speakers for today. I'm joined by Jeff Anoka. He's the Director for Department of Energy, Corporate Recruitment and Outreach. Reese Madsen, he's the Chief Learning Officer, Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. And Steve Dabrowski, he's the Principal of Thought Leadership and Advisory Services at Cornerstone. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining me today. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Steve, who will kick off today's program for us.
Hello, everybody. Steve Dabrowski here with Cornerstone On Demand. First, I want to say thank you to Jeff and Reese for joining us in this conversation about talent management. As a result of attending this session, attendees should know that you'll receive a copy of a white paper that Cornerstone has done in partnership with the Partnership for Public Service on this very topic, on how agencies and organizations are moving from inefficient talent management processes or non-existent talent management processes to integrated talent management. And that's going to be the focus on what we talk with today with Reese and Jeff. Before we start getting into that, I want to set the context a little bit about the work and the environment and what's going on with our employees in today's world of work. You know, as many generations have said, the world changes, the work changes, how we do it. You know, think back to the typewriter, to the computer, now to the iPhone. You know, what devices we use to do it, the how is changing, the who is changing. We have, some say, 5 generations in the workforce for the first time ever, and all of them having different and unique needs. The work is different. The actual, what we're asking our employees to do is completely different. Where nowadays we are seeing our employees across the globe. We're having more and more flexible workplaces, flexible work schedules when we start to talk about the when, and we also have folks that are extending beyond the workday. So it's no longer the core hours of this to this, it's flexibility and allowing the individual employees to work where, when, how, and when or what they want. So we really have to be, as organizations, flexible in terms of our employees' needs when it gets to getting the actual work done. Then when we start to ask, what does our actual workforce want? Well, we used to think that it was all just more pay. And a lot of our research has shown that actually what employees want is to feel like their employer is taking good care of them, that they're feeding their training and development needs, that they're listening to their work-life balance, and they actually have flexible hours. These things are much more important than it comes down than salary and actual bonuses. Those are important in some regard, but what's interesting is that training and development consistently was the highest demand of a workforce, of a highly engaged workforce. So it's particularly important as we start to talk about talent management and training and development and onboarding and recruiting, where we start talking about talent management and what our employees actually need. Now, I also want to point out a couple things of what's going on in terms of the talent problem, we'll call it, right? So we're having an unprecedented shortage of skilled workers coming into the workforce. We can't fill over half of our jobs. Our jobs are staying open longer and longer because we can't get the right employee or the right applicant in the right position. We're having specific problems with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics positions. These positions, while highly specialized, are highly difficult to fill. In the federal government, we actually even have some special hiring authorities that allow us to do this. But are they being as effective as they possibly can? And once we do get them on board, are we taking care of them so they don't walk right back out the door? In other industries, we're shipping out our manufacturing, our journeymen. In defense or federal, we're bringing in a lot of contractors to handle this because we don't have the skill set on board. And what's interesting about this generation is nowadays folks from, the median work area, the work age, about 18 to, just shy of 50, they're average going to have over 11 jobs in their career. It's jobs, not, positions. It's, I want to do this today, but tomorrow I'm going to be doing that. 11 jobs in their career. And what's even scarier is the amount of people that are walking out the door in terms of retirement. It's estimated that the current workforce, 43% of them will retire in the next decade. This is not a new number to the federal government. It still should be scary because we have to deal with this as an entire workforce. What's even scarier, and I'm so happy to have Jeff on the line when we talk about recruiting and onboarding. What's interesting is that if you look at when employees make a decision to leave, so those employees that are going to be leaving, when is it that they actually decide to leave? It's well within the first year, if you look at the stacked up percentages, but take a look and add up the first day, the first week, and even the first month. That takes you over to 50% of the people are deciding to leave within the first month of them working. That really speaks to an agency's need to have well-crafted talent management strategies, care and feed for their employees, making sure that they're feeling engaged, taking care of their training and development, showing them the career path that they're going to be successful for the long haul in your organization. And then if you take a look at where our individuals start to level off, it's beyond that year. We see a drop in the actual turnover when we start looking at 2 years. Then we've had a chance to figure out, I feel comfortable here. My organization cares about my training and development. I have the sufficient opportunities here in terms of my career. I'm well enough paid. I have good benefits, and I get along with my boss okay, right? So those are some of the top reasons that people decide to leave an organization. So you see after that 1 year hump, it starts to drop down in terms of voluntary turnover. So that's a good sign that the employee feels comfortable and we're now at a good spot. And as you get older and older, or the seniority gets more and more, the level drops down sufficiently. So I want to hear some more about what's going on in energy and in the Defense Department, which is why we have Jeff and Reese on the line. I'm going to ask Jeff to kick us off here and talk a little bit about what's going on in energy and how you guys in energy are taking into consideration employee needs in terms of talent management and making sure that you're engaging your employees with the things that you're doing. So Jeff?
Thank you very much, and thank you to Cornerstone for having me present some information about what we're doing at the Department of Energy. This session couldn't have been more timely, I would say. Talent management at DOE is evolving at a rapid pace, especially over the last 2 or 3 years. But more importantly, talent management at DOE is becoming a real office and an organization that's going to help lead us to the next 10 to 15 years. Just backing up a little bit, again, I'm Jeffrey Anoka, and I lead the Department of Energy's Corporate Recruitment and Outreach organization. If you know anything about DOE, I liken it to Berkshire Hathaway of the federal government, in that we're a cobbling of a bunch of unique organizations and agencies and administrations, all for the singular mission of improving access to energy and ensuring energy security here in the nation. We're roughly 40 program offices and another 80 sites across the world. Several sites I don't know about, is far above my clearance level. So the Department of Energy is definitely a very dynamic environment. Kind of going into why I said that this was very timely, at the DOE as it relates to talent management. We have just actually completed within the last year a talent management study. The way we were defining talent management was the relationship between talent acquisition and talent development. We saw a very natural fit between the employee life cycle. How do we engage talent at a very early age and build a pipeline? And how do we get the talent on board, develop them, retain them, train them, and watch them retire out in the golden years. So we definitely conducted a talent management study, and I'll give you a little bit more information on that in the coming slides. We've also started to really take a big investment or make a big investment in leadership development and supervisory training. Talent management only happens when everyone has the tools necessary to succeed, and we have taken a look at our teams, and we've taken a look at our supervisors, and we're giving them training, equipping them with the tools necessary to be able to make the best hiring decisions. And so we provide for everyone annually refreshers in the use of several special hiring authorities. The team that I lead here at DOE is actively engaged in presenting information to hiring managers across the department about the different authorities that exist, ways that they can bring on talent creatively, quickly, and most importantly, the right talent. And so, that's another big thing that we have going. We're also reorganizing. As we've conducted this study, as we've continued to do training and get feedback, we're reorganizing to fit the need that we've been hearing from our customers. And one of the things that, as I mentioned, has recently happened, and actually we had a meeting on that about an hour ago, is that we're setting up a talent management office. So the Office of Talent Management within our Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer will focus exactly on the things that we are seeing as talent management needs here in the department. All of this will help us improve our service to our customers, along with the new shared service center construct that we've piloted or that we've rolled out over the course of the last year. All of this we see as being very helpful in making DOE's talent management a premier talent management organization. Moving on to the talent management study and what that meant. We did a talent management study to figure out how we can move beyond just, the anecdotes. People don't want to come work for the government. We don't pay enough. We can't recruit millennials. Managers only want to hire backfill with a very similar position to what they've lost. These are things that we thought. These are things that we knew, candidly speaking, or at least we thought we knew. And so what we wanted from this study was good, hard, and fast data that will tell us that, yes, you guys are correct in your assertions, or no, you guys are missing the mark, and here's some things that you're not seeing. And so that was one fundamental reason why we conducted the study. The other fundamental reason is to answer some fundamental questions. We wanted to know from a baseline what's happening in DOE around recruitment and hiring. How are we doing as it relates to hiring? Are things as bad as it seems? Are we not hitting the 80-day mark? Or if so, or if not, how bad are we against that 80-day mark? And for training, how much money are we spending on training? Do we have an accurate accounting of the numbers of the dollars that we're spending on training? What's the effectiveness of both our recruitment programs as well as our training programs? The Corporate Recruitment and Outreach Division was created about 2 years ago to try to get to address some of the things that Steve mentioned around the lack of STEM pipeline, the challenges around recruiting. And so we wanted to see if there were any best practices. And one, I would say a third reason why we conducted this study was to identify if there were best practices that were local. Are there parts of DOE that's recruiting well? Are there parts of DOE that what are they doing? How much are they spending? How can we leverage those best practices corporately to make for a better recruiting process? We also wanted to benchmark other agencies and organizations that were similarly situated. So we talked to private industry firms to see what they were doing to recruit STEM talent. And we were, to my shock, and I'm being facetious, we found out some information that refuted a lot of the claims that we made. And so kind of go into what we did. We definitely reviewed the workload cost. We wanted to see what the workload looks like. How many people were devoted to talent management programs, recruiting, onboarding, training and development, organizational effectiveness or culture. How many people across the agency were currently working in those functions? How much money was being spent on these functions? Were we reporting accurately, annually? Were we underreporting? If so, by how much? We also worked to identify the challenges that recruitment or a talent management organization would face as it tried to become more mature. What are some of the issues and obstacles? Is our DOE construct an impediment to successful recruiting and learning environment? Are there some things, best practices that we can take from some of our larger organizations and some of our smaller organizations and create for a more corporate approach to these activities? These are the things that we wanted to do. And then also, too, the study provided clear recommendations for both learning as well as for recruitment that would allow for us to be able to come back to the department leadership and say, hey, look, here's what we learned from the study. Here are some things that we see that are constant across the department. These are constant across the industry and constant across the federal government. Here are some potential mitigation strategies for these. And so these are the three main things that we did as part of the talent management study. And what did we find out? As we kind of thought, recruitment at DOE lacked workforce planning. We did not have a good, clear, authoritative workforce planning environment established. I think that what we saw was that there were some program offices within the department that actually took workforce planning very seriously. There were others that, were very reactionary. And one of the things that we really wanted to really call out through this effort was to say, hey, look, corporately, we don't get it. We don't know how many positions we need to fill. We don't know what types of positions we need to fill. And we don't have the best strategies in place to be able to fill the positions because we don't know what we need to fill. Another thing is that we lack coordination. One of the interesting things that we found was through our surveys and engagement was that there were several program offices that were engaged, for example, in recruitment efforts. They were going to the same schools, very good, reputable schools in the engineering space. But the issue was that one program office went on campuses between the September and early October timeframe. The other program office, and I can't joke about this enough, but the other program office actually went on campus on December 23rd. Because of that lack of coordination, we found that there were offices that second office did not have as much success, and that, had they coordinated their efforts, they could have benefited from using some of our flexibilities, as Steve mentioned, to bring on talent in a more quick and efficient way. And so we saw coordination as a big issue. The third thing that we saw as a big issue as it relates to recruitment was there was limited leadership involvement in the recruitment effort. In that DOE leadership would go out and speak at many events, occasions, and they were not flying the DOE flag that, hey, we're looking for great talent, come work for us. We have already started to see that trend starting to reverse slowly, but definitely surely. Very recently, we have one of our power market administrations that's on the verge of recruiting for a member of its senior leadership team. and this organization's leadership has been tasked with identifying 5 people that they would like to call to share information about this opportunity. That, to me, is a step in the right direction. And so that's the direction that we see as a positive way forward. As it relates to learning, we saw very similar things in that there was a lack of planning. The offices would react to the needs that would arise throughout a fiscal year. We were not sitting back and trying to figure out where we were going as an organization and trying to make sure that we have the appropriate training solutions in place. We were also not talking across the different program office lines. So program office A would not talk to program office B, and they would identify this similar leadership development training. They would both purchase it. One office has maybe 3 or 4 people sitting in seats purchased. The other office would have 1 or 2, but combined, the price that the amount that was spent on the 2 different programs could have sat about 50 to 60 leaders across our agency. So there's an opportunity for us to be more efficient there. And speaking to kind of the duplication of effort, and most importantly, we found that we were significantly underreporting. Our systems had not talked to each other for years. And so the general system that's used to acquire training, the OF 182, electronic form process was one system that was used, but we didn't think about the acquisition systems. We didn't think about other training systems that were identified, purchase cards for training that was under 3,500. So many things that led to our underreporting. And so, these are some of the challenges that were identified as part of the report, as part of the study. But given all of that, there were some really strong recommendations. One, a recommendation was that we really needed to identify corporate leadership development programs and have them run out of one organization. We also identified that there was a strong need for development of workforce plans. That would include the training needs assessment, the outlook for positions that need to be filled, something that would be able to measure the attrition that we expected. We also saw a need to develop a recruiting strategy for this agency. And so these are things that are being actively worked on and will be soon worked on under this new talent management organization. As we identify our next steps, this organization will have 4 major functions. Functions will include talent acquisition. And so the very strategic recruiting activities, engagement opportunities, as well as use of hiring flexibilities will fall under that organization. We also see a strong and significant need to ensure that we're doing a proper job of onboarding. As Steve mentioned, we lose a lot of people within that first year. My view, and the view of most people who sit in this chief recruiter's seat, is that recruitment starts as pipeline development all the way through at least 18 months of a new employee's time within an organization. So although they're on board, we're still recruiting them. An effective onboarding program that measures their happiness and satisfaction of both the manager as well as the employee through at least that first year is going to be pivotal. We also will, under this talent management organization, there will be workforce development. So training and learning, traditional training and learning will still fall under this organization and provide the solutions and strategic direction for the agency around its learning, its training and learning development needs. The fourth area, which I'm really excited about and I think completes our circle very, very nicely, is organizational effectiveness. What are we doing with these folks once we get them on board and we get them past year 1? How are we keeping them satisfied? Are we measuring whether or not they're satisfied? Are we developing solutions and tools that can enable managers to be effective in leading their organizations? And so this will be the look of DOE's talent management organization. I'm really excited about the direction that we're going in. And just a few other points before I pass on the baton. As I mentioned, our talent acquisition shop carries some major functions. Strategic solutions for this agency around recruitment. We can no longer afford to just post and pray. We have to be proactive in engaging the talent pipelines. We're not only competing against the rest of the wonderful federal government, we're competing against private industry. In many cases, these organizations are on campus as early as middle school for most occupations. They're developing the pipeline. They're training people on how to think about and consider their careers for the future. And so we need to be there. Another thing that we're doing in what I call talent management now is we're going beyond, the federal employee viewpoint survey. So we're going to EVS 2.0. The Office of Personnel Management creates reports annually for the different agencies around, here's what your different workforce, here's the information that ties to your different parts of your workforce or different organizations. At DOE, we're diving a little bit further. We've gone down to organizations with at least 10 members on their staff. We will provide for you a management report that gives you very detailed information on the view of your workforce. How do people see things going within your organization? And so we're going to what I call Survey 2.0. We're also identifying and creating and developing and rolling out, stay surveys, exit surveys, pulse surveys that we'll run annually to ensure that we're getting a better and more clear picture of how people are viewing the organization. We see that as an important thing because it helps inform some of the decisions that we'll make. It helps inform some of the solutions that we'll propose that managers take to ensure that their teams stay engaged and active. We're also looking to push the DOE brand as far as we can. The department does a lot of great things, from its national labs and research to its nuclear security mission to Hoover Dam. I think that we need to be, it's clear that the department needs to continue to push the brand. Get people to know what it is that we do, understand that we're not your local, utility, but we provide regulatory oversight, we provide direction, we provide grant funding, we do a whole host of different things. And so that's why branding 2.0 or branding now for us is very important. And for me, the last thing that I've identified as an important thing for us is our employee engagement. Employee engagement is something that's of high importance to our current administration, our secretary and deputy secretary. They're fully invested and have proven that investment by hosting a number of town halls, by having listening sessions, by engaging folks from across the department up to and including our unpaid interns. They see this as an investment in their workforce today and tomorrow. And so with that, I want to pass to my colleague who will be providing the next set of information.
Absolutely. This is Reese Madsen. I am the Chief Learning Officer for the Intelligence and Security Programs within the Department of Defense. So I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank Government Executive for inviting me and Cornerstone for kind of facilitating this great discussion. Everything that you've heard from Steve and Jeff, I completely concur with. From my perspective, what I bring to the table, my enterprise includes 52 different schoolhouses and programs and stakeholders, basically providing learning opportunities for 2.5 million people. That includes officers and enlisted in the military services. I have government civilians. I have academic folks from any number of institutions around the world. And, of course, I have the defense industrial base that provides workforce or at least capability that the department utilizes. So, as we saw in Steve's slides, that the workforce demands and desires talent and development. And you saw that a lot of decisions are made within the first year. So when I look at these issues, the talent development side of the components and programs have to be ready to go, because this may be the first opportunity that your company has with this one person, and that engagement is key to the future of where that person is going to continue to work. And so if we don't get the talent development piece right and provide the right learning opportunities at the right time to meet their needs and frankly to meet the company's needs, then I think we have failed as an enterprise. So I kind of want to underscore that as I go through. I have a couple slides here that I've put together with some of the work that I've done with the Federal Chief Learning Officer Council, work that I've done with OPM and some of their working groups, as well as the support I provided the National Security Professional Development Program under Executive Order 13434. So when we talk about talent management, you really kind of have to understand what capability your workforce is providing you. And if you don't know that, then it's hard to manage the people, where they are, what they're doing. Are you overtraining? Are you undertraining? Are you training the right things? And that's key. So if you don't know the knowledge, skills, abilities, and even proficiency, then it's very hard to do any kind of planning that Jeff talked about. And so my enterprise also includes, those 5 generations. I have 17-year-olds who may or may not have graduated high school, all the way up to the octogenarians that are PhD scientists that are working critical technical issues at one of my components. And, my components are very diverse to include the intelligence organizations within the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, as well as very large and very powerful organizations such as the National Security Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the Defense Security Service, the National Reconnaissance Office. All those have got fairly large populations, all with varying degrees of talent development that I'm trying to look at from a department or at least an enterprise perspective. So, in short, I have a fairly simple vision and mission that I'm trying to look at applying to some of the issues that we heard from Steve and Jeff. So the simple vision, it talks about an integrated ecosystem, and that's key because in all those workforce segments I just mentioned, there are gobs and gobs of learning tools and learning management systems and content management systems and other things that are used to help your workforce learn. But none of them are integrated. Even within a component, I have one component, who shall remain nameless, has a half dozen different major subsections or sub-enterprises that don't talk to their neighboring component. And that makes it tough for that component to manage their talent when the systems don't talk to each other. But I'm also not advocating having a huge, large, monolithic tool that everyone has to use, but I think there's something in the middle where we can at least connect some of the systems that we do have. That could be based on developing standards. It could be consolidation. It could be integration. It could be moving to a new technology. Because as we've heard, some people understand talent management better than others. Some leaders have a firmer grasp or embrace learning. And when I talk about learning, I talk about training and education and experience and certifications and anything that will allow your workforce to gain knowledge, add skills, be a better performer. All those are included in that portfolio of learning. Then, of course, the mission, we really are trying to push that last statement there, the getting that solution to that particular workforce person at the moment and place of need. And that's key because that's what they're going to remember. That's what's going to keep them at your component. They're going to say, hey, these guys get me. They provided the learning that I wanted, the learning that I needed, where and when I needed it. So that goes to the first slide where people are happy about that, and that's important. So what I've done in the next slide here, I tried to compare and contrast what we currently have on the left-hand side and where we're trying to move to on the right-hand side. And so it's important that people can kind of see themselves in that left-hand side in the current scenario where a lot of people have component unique requirements. They may or may not have a catalog. They have limited access to training outside their own walls, where it's not necessarily that you have to have every single course in the world, but it may be important for you to have access to somebody who does. And that gets to be very expensive when each component tries to build a complete learning solution when all they have to do is perhaps share content or provide additional seats to this particular class or provide some sort of experiential program that could help your workforce. And so the vision side is important to kind of see some key concepts that I'll go through in the next couple slides. So what I am proposing is a talent development toolkit where we have some sort of tool that is available, that is interoperable, and provides as many aspects of learning to your workforce. And that's important because not everything needs to be trained. Not everything comes with a academic degree. The certifications, may or may not address all your mission-related concerns, because a lot of learning happens in a formal way in which we have very formal classes, we have schoolhouses, we have instructors. Some people learn that way best, and that's fine. We get that. But there are a lot of informal ways that people are learning where they can learn the same amount of information, perhaps in the same or less amount of time, through experiential learning or through presentations like this one, or any number of tools that people can learn, and everyone learns differently, from that 17-year-old to that 80-year-old. And we want to be able to provide whatever learning tool suits them best where and when they need it. So you may have one topic that people need to understand within your workforce, and so it may need to be available in a classroom or in a web-based training opportunity. It could be in a a mobile team trainer, or it could be just on a CD. All these things are ways of learning. It may be the same information, but because people learn differently, we want to make sure that they all have that same opportunity. And that's where we're looking at the best of breed. Because my enterprise is so large, and there are larger ones out there, we want to pick and choose those that have worked best for your workforces and be able to tailor it to meet your mission, as well as provide some of the data that we really haven't done well in collecting, or at least automating, that we can make better decisions and do that planning that Jeff talked about. And all those things come together, and if we build the framework correctly for this talent development toolkit, then it can be scalable to not just our department, maybe to the intelligence community, maybe to the federal government. You know, I think we all have similar chronic issues that we've never have taken the time or the effort to look at it holistically, that I think now is the time to take that approach and try and build something that meets people's needs. And what would that include? Well, some of the major components that I have initially found out through some of our own studies, through deep dives, our oversight, our annual reporting. These are some of the major buckets and chunks of information that we see as being an initial wave of capability. Some of these exist, some of these capabilities do not. Some are technology driven, some technology doesn't yet exist. But what we're finding, that most of the challenges are not technology based or leadership based, but they are cultural and political challenges that people have a hard time getting over to build something that might be interoperable for all the systems that you want to connect, or providing a common data repository based on a common data standard that everyone has built to and everyone has. There are some standards out there, but that may or may not meet your needs to address some of those data-driven decisions that you want to make through your workforce planning and your talent management. And of course, the biggest issue is looking at this from an enterprise perspective, where there is some enterprise governance that is required, and some oversight and some quality control, which are really the key pieces that may or may not be missing. They're definitely missing from a larger perspective. Some components do learning very, very well. But how do we get that either culture, that ethos, that philosophical approach across the federal government? And that's the challenge. That's the cultural or political challenges that we just can't get over to make. Some of these are fairly simple approaches. Some of these aren't that hard based on current technology, and it's just having the inner fortitude to make that leap of faith and to connect some of these programs or build that standard or codify a way forward. And so those are really important, because we want these tools to interface with as many people as possible, to meet your needs, to address your requirements, to make sure your workforce is happy so that it can make your workforce better, make your mission accomplished, and move you forward. Some of the initial benefits that we expect, I'm not going to read them, but they're mostly mom and apple pie, but the key issues are things that are shared, things that are improved, things that are increased, and things that are automated. Some fairly basic verbs in there, but those are the pieces that are harder to get to when you don't have that common focus, that common point on the horizon where we need to get to. So we're trying to make this talent development toolkit that point on the horizon to be able to have components, departments, whomever, focused and address many of these components, if not shoot for some of these benefits to address your needs. Then, ultimately, what we're trying to fulfill is the talent development trilogy, where this is a concept that we developed with OPM and was validated by the CLO Council, where the three pieces of that triangle are requirements, making sure you have a need for a learning piece, whether that could be training, education, certification, experiential, doesn't matter. Delivery, I think a lot of people do that very well. Do we do it organized and integrated and collaborative? Probably not. And one area that we really don't do as well as we should is the measure and the check it. Are we actually transferring the knowledge that we said we were through this learning opportunity? Is everyone going through the training better than they were when they started it? We use certifications to help identify that, but that is just one tool. There are other opportunities that you can test out of training or learning. If you get a degree, does that help mitigate certain requirements? So in a simple word, the trilogy is really what we're trying to build to support talent management. So I think that concludes my portion of the presentation. There's my contact information, and I think I can turn it back over to Jeff for additional information.
So, hi guys, this is Steve Dabrowski again. Thank you so much, Reese, and thank you so much, Jeff. I do want to say it was very interesting to see the different approaches, and I guess one common theme that I would say to folks is that it has to do with the strategy, right? So you may be dealing with talent management as an approach from an organization, overcoming some of the cultural and the obstacles that you face. But the point is that you need to start somewhere. And it sounds like energy and defense had different ideas as where to start. That's fine, right? So it depends on the organization, and it depends on what is I guess I used to call it, I was in the federal government, and it's that point where you realize that there's a need so much that it forces you to act. It's called the burning platform. What forces you to jump, right? So in energy, may have been the recruiting. We weren't having the right people. Department of Defense, so complex to do the various things. I used to say to folks that I was working with talent management that perfection is the enemy of progress, right? So it's important when we talk about talent management that we recognize that it's not going to be perfect right off the bat. We have to create an environment that allows for that to happen. We have to make sure that the parties that are coming together to begin to deploy these talent management strategies or tools recognize that there are going to be shifts and changes in how we do different things. So if you do learning one way and we're now combining performance with them, are we going to be doing it differently? Are there going to be some things that we have to give up and some things that we have to change? No tool, no process is going to be the same as you start to merge these together. But if you keep your eye on the overall strategic direction of where we want to go and keep that in mind, you're going to be best suited for successful accomplishment in that manner. I do want to leave like 10 minutes or so left in the session. I want to be able to turn it back to Raydell. I know that we have had some questions come in. So Raydell, can you talk to us about some of the questions that you had for the panel?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. And I do just want to let folks know, too, if you do want to direct a question, please go ahead and submit it in the Q&A section. But for the first question we have, this is for Jeff and Reese. What has been your biggest obstacle, and how did you overcome this? So I don't know if, Jeff, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for the question. A great question. Biggest obstacles to our moving forward with a talent management program here is our construct. Department of Energy, as I mentioned, is a cobbling of a bunch of different organizations, most of which, or several of which, get their own appropriations directly from Congress. Different missions, different focus, different leadership, makes it difficult to try to pull together a consistent approach. But what I would say has been very helpful in us being able to turn the tide slightly, especially given that this is a very scientific organization, is through research. We did some research. We conducted this study. We used information that we found in the study, presented it in such a way where it's almost undisputable. Another thing that we've done that I definitely applaud this effort is being able to pull folks from across the department, so different program offices, different organizations, to sit on a committee with us to help go through and prioritize some of our findings, as well as to socialize, some of the ways forward that we've identified as part of these findings. And so definitely a challenge in our organizational construct, our budget structure, but to mitigate that, I would say, having a very fact-based and research-based analysis that we can come together with our program partners and socialize across our agency.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. And Reese, did you have any insights on that question around the biggest obstacles for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about some of the cultural and political challenges that really cause us not to move as far forward or as fast as we probably should be. Some of those issues include, we've always done it this way. Why would we want to change it now? What are we trying to fix here? I don't see it. It's been working great so far, so I don't see a need to do this. It costs too much. It's going to take too much time. And I think everyone in that perspective looks down at what they're doing and how they're doing it, says, yep, we're good to go. But very few people are looking across or over their own fence line to find out, well, maybe somebody can do it better, or maybe we can share, maybe we can collaborate, maybe we can be a little bit more effective or a little bit more efficient. And I think Jeff was talking about, if you don't have that data and you can't make any data-driven decisions. And so those decisions help in your planning. And everything kind of fits together, but until you look at the big picture, you're never going to move out of the first step. So those are the things that we've seen in actual practice.
Perfect. Thank you for your insights there. Okay, fantastic. And then Jeff and Reese, maybe you have some thoughts on this one that just came in. What can agencies do to get buy-in for human capital efforts from the new administration?
All right.
Always an easy question, right?
Right, that should be easy.
Go ahead, Reese. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm actually part of our transition team, building the issue papers for the department that we're going to use in the transition teams, and so we're actually trying to do or present some of those talent management proposals and the human capital management of the workforce. And really, we're trying to get people to think of their talent as a system. We do great with systems here in DoD. We have subs and aircrafts and ISR systems where we have to have a requirement and build it and maintain it and upgrade it and ultimately retire it. Well, why don't we take that same approach with our workforce and our human capital? And why don't we have that same level of detail in having a good requirement and having the maintenance and having the upgrades and having a succession planning, so that when all knowledge of an 80-year-old person retires, why isn't that transferred to the front of the line to the next kid that comes in? And again, it's just trying to change the thought of how we deal with talent management.
From my vantage point, one of the things that could be very helpful is, and it's something that we're doing here, is, we're cataloging our successes. So what are the things that we've done well as it relates to human capital? So we've gone to this new shared service center construct. We're taking a more strategic approach to recruitment and outreach. We've developed workforce planning models. I know there was another question there about workforce planning, but we've developed a workforce planning model and socialized it with key stakeholders across the department. So showing these successes in a catalog form and kind of speaking to what you see, what we see as kind of the emerging matters, the things that and not necessarily anecdotal matters, but things that we've identified through our research, being able to present that in such a way where it's easy and it's clear, and merging that, having a willingness to merge that with some of the things that are priorities of the coming administration, I think could help us be successful going forward. In previous transitions, one of the things that always helped us in human capital stand out, or at least earn our keep, so to speak, is being able to show, the value that we add to an organization, tying whatever we are doing, our efforts, to the overall bottom line, if there was such a thing in federal government, being able to show that value. And so these are some things that I would offer from a recommendation standpoint, and I'm happy to discuss with folks offline if they have additional questions about that specific question.
So thank you, guys. Thank you both, Reese and Jeffrey. I wanted to say it was a great conversation. I appreciate it. This has been a very enlightening conversation. We did get into a little bit more conversation than we anticipated, so there were some slides that you may have seen us zip by. This presentation is going to be available. Radel and the GovExec team will make sure that you have access to that. And as a reminder, there will be a white paper called From Inefficient to Integrated, where there are a number of different government leaders that are interviewed, and we talk about where we are with talent management. Reese and Jeffrey, thank you so much. Radel, can we toss it to you to close us out?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Lots to talk about there. So it was a great conversation. As Steve alluded to, you will be receiving the link to the recorded webcast in your inbox, so please keep a watch out for it and share it with your friends and colleagues who might find this conversation useful. And thank you again, everyone that joined us, as well as our presenters. We really enjoyed this conversation, so thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. This has been great.